created thing, but only the Creator would the godly-minded use, adore and worship as God. But manfully trampling down threats of fire, they cried out, O supremely praised and all acclaim, one blessed art thou, O thou Lord God of our Father.
Every part of the Orthodox Church's life has something to do with asceticism. You can't read any life of a saint without hearing about their ascetic exploits, and you can't read any of the monastic fathers without hearing about asceticism. And I mean, we fast half the year, right? So there's clearly something going on with asceticism in the Orthodox Church. But do we understand that and what that is and why we do it? I'm not quite sure. So let's talk about that. But in order for us to talk about it, we have to go way back to the very beginning, to the creation of mankind. God made us, humanity, sinless, receptive to His grace, and in His image and likeness. Now, part of that image of God is that we are Trinitarian in our composition also. So we have the spirit, the soul, and the body. And the spirit, the nous, is the part of us that communes with God, and therefore has the wisdom and discernment to direct the rest of us. So the Spirit is set as our leader, as the ruler of this little Trinity. And the soul and the body are the co-laborers in the work of salvation, the servants of the Spirit, to work together. But the problem is that we fell, and we chose physical pleasure and independence from God. And when that happened, our little hierarchy got inverted, and we put our body at the top. So now our physical pleasure is our top priority. And the problem is that Christ said that no one can serve two masters. You will either love the one and hate the other, or you will serve the one and despise the other. So pretty much ever since Adam and Eve, most of humanity has been serving the body. We cannot serve two masters, so we can't actually say that we serve our physical pleasure and God at the same time, which is why St. Paul said that the things of the flesh are opposed to the things of the Spirit. It's one or the other. So we've come a long way from what God created us to be. But the good news is the gospel, the good news that Jesus Christ became man, took on all of human nature in Himself, and restored and healed it and reunited it to the divine nature. And He made that possible for all of us, this way of returning back to our original health and destiny. And that's what the Church and the saints have been doing for all the time ever since then, is mapping this way and trying to preserve it and pass it down to us. The problem is, well, I don't know if it's a problem, but it's probably not, because Christ chose to give us this salvation and this healing and potential in the seed form. And it's up to us to grow that seed and to realize the potential of the healing of human nature. And this takes synergy. It takes us working together with God. Christ gave us the way, but we have to follow it with His help. So our actions, our efforts and labors involved in following this way is what essentially our asceticism is. This is our labor in salvation. Now, asceticism, the Greek word is ascesis, and it literally means exercise. It's the same word that would be used to talk about an athlete training for his sport, or the exercises that a teacher would give her students to learn a lesson. So this is a word of growth and development, and also of determination and vigor. It's a very active, very involved, and a very positive thing. So I don't want you to hear asceticism and think of like long-faced monks who hit themselves with, flog themselves. Sorry. Asceticism is our exercise. It's our spiritual workout. And it's totally the same thing. We're one being, so our soul and our body, they often work the same way. When our bodies get weighed down, we put on some weight, we get some health problems, and we need to get in shape. So you start working out, and at the beginning, it is hard, and you sweat, and you get tired really easily, and it's kind of painful. But when you start to regain your health and your muscles start to regain their strength, then all of a sudden that exercise feels easier. And once you've reached a healthy state, then you feel so good that if you don't do those exercises, then it feels bad. It's the same thing with our spiritual health and our spiritual exercise. So the reason that asceticism works to heal us is because of our specific spiritual illness. Our illness came about by seeking pleasure. And if you think about it, all of the passions and sins develop either from seeking pleasure or avoiding pain, which are two sides of the same coin. So greed and gluttony, these are all the pursuit of pleasure. Things like anger and pride are the avoidance of pain. So all of our passions, all of our problems, all of the things that separate us from God come from this root problem of our attachment to pleasure. And therefore, the healing of that is the acceptance of pain, which will eventually teach us to let go of our unhealthy attachment to pleasure. So, pleasure made us sick. Pain will help to heal us. Involuntary sufferings can be used in the same way, so it's not just things like fasting or standing in church and these voluntary offerings of accepting suffering, but all of the things that come to us in our daily lives, the little inconveniences, our disappointments, the loss of loved ones, physical illness, these are all pains and sufferings that if we can accept them with a humble heart, as St. Isaac the Syrian said, if we can accept to be bruised, then even these involuntary asceticisms can still lead to the same end, to our cleansing and reordering and our restoration. Now, it's important for us to keep in mind that suffering is never the end in and of itself. Our goal is not to suffer, and God's goal is not for us to suffer. So we are not masochists. Thankfully, God is not a sadist. He does not rejoice in our suffering, but he will allow us to endure and encounter sufferings so that we can be returned to him, so that this sickness of the attachment to pleasure can be uprooted from our hearts. So healthy asceticism will detach us from our sick hold on pleasure. It will resubmit the body to the mind, freeing the spirit from the tyranny of the physical body. It will cleanse and purify us so that we are more receptive to the grace of God. And the fruit of healthy asceticism will eventually be a mind that is clear and lightened from the load of sin and is easy to alight in prayer. This is closer to the destiny that we were created for, closer to the state of Adam and Eve before the fall, in which we were in open communion with God, and there was nothing that inhibited that. And just like our physical exercise, once we have tasted this spiritual health, then the weight of sin will feel unbearable to us. And we will now find sweetness in the things that originally felt hard or bitter. And this is the fruit of a well-trained soul, a soul that has gotten into good shape. It will easily ascend to God. And from that place, it becomes easy for us to reject sin and turn away from it because we know the sweetness that it would take from us. So that's our goal. We need to take up the exercise of asceticism and the acceptance of sufferings with God's help to get there.
In acclaiming thee, we cry, rejoice, O chariot of the Noetic sun. Rejoice, true vine that didst bear the truly ripe cluster of grapes, dripping with the wine that doth gladden all.